Okay, great. We have Amir. That's wonderful. Perfect. Hi, Amir. No, you're muted, but thanks so much for coming in. We had some technical difficulties with letting in some of our panelists here, but we're broadcasting, so we're just seeing people kind of trickle in, and we'll wait and just start in just a little bit while everyone joins us.
Awesome, awesome. How are you guys?
Good. Yeah, nice Christmas tree, by the way. Look at that, very seasonal.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's we started a little bit earlier this year. We figured it kind of makes sense because of all the lockdown thing. So yeah.
Yeah, and the holiday spirit. Why not?
Yeah. So I think Drew, you are from Vancouver, right?
Yeah, this Drew. Actually, we've got two Drews on the panel here. Yeah, so I'm from Vancouver.
Yeah.
That's at People's Law School here in Vancouver.
Okay, awesome. I think I was talking to one of my friends from Vancouver. It was talking about the constant rain last week.
Right. Yes. Always that.
Yeah, it's
this time of year.
This the season.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's actually been nice fall until the last couple of weeks, but we're into the full rainy November mode right now for sure.
Yeah. I mean, we just got hit by the snowstorm here today, Montreal.
Oh, okay.
So yeah.
First major.
It's that time of the year.
Yeah, and then Drew Spicer, you're in Whitehorse, is that right?
In Whitehorse, yeah.
Oh, okay. So is it full winter mode there now?
It is, yeah. We've had snow since about the first week of October.
Oh yeah.
We're up to close to 2 feet now.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
These are probably pretty short. Like is the sun out now?
No, it's still dark out right now. It's just starting to come up, and yeah, we'll get about 5.5 hours a day late right now.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, by the time you're getting home, it's dark when you go to work, and it's getting dark again when you get home. So
yeah, pop out over lunch to see the sun.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a precious commodity.
Yeah.
Okay, I think we're going to go ahead and get started, guys. So we have a few participants already coming in, but we can just go ahead because we had a little bit of a delay. So I'm going to go ahead and just get us started. So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for PLEAC's webinar on chatbots. We have some wonderful panelists for you today that I'm really excited to introduce. Although you've heard a little bit of introductions as we're just chatting and setting up here. But firstly, I'd just like to start with a land acknowledgement. So today we are thankful to have attendees from various provinces across Canada. So I am asking that each of you take a brief moment at some point today to reflect on the land that you're residing on. I am located here in Toronto, Ontario, so I would like to acknowledge the land I and others joining us today are on, and it's the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We also acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. Also, a few things you might already know, having joined our webinars before. I just want to remind everyone that this session is being recorded, so if someone you know couldn't tune in today, the recording will be sent out after the webinar is complete. If you have any questions during the webinar, please feel free to use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. The questions that we receive will be saved for the end of the webinar, so we will try to get to as many as we can, sort of depending on the time we have left. So I hope all of you took some time to read our panelists' impressive bios. Without further ado, join me in welcoming our panelists for today. So first we have Drew Jackson from People's Law School in BC. Next we have another Drew Spicer, joining us from the Yukon Human Rights Commission. And finally we have Amir Moravej, joining us from Bottler AI. And so we're going to go ahead and start with Drew Jackson, and he will take the stage, and we'll, once you're ready to go, Drew, just feel free to take it away.
Great. Thanks so much, Hannah. And thanks everyone for joining this morning. Delighted to be on a panel to share our experience at People's Law School with chatbots so far, and to learn from the other panelists, which I'm very confident I'm going to be learning lots here on this webinar too. So what I wanted to do over the next few minutes, actually first, I just want to confirm that my slide deck is visible for everybody. Awesome. I was doing a webinar recently where I was about 5 minutes in, and someone politely interjected and said, you know, I'm pretty confident you've got a slide deck because I can hear you speaking to the slide deck, but none of us can see it. So anyways, glad that this one is visible. So what I wanted to do in the next 10-ish to 15 minutes is give you an idea of how we define the problem that we felt a chatbot could be part of the solution for, and why we thought a chatbot could help. Then have a quick look at Beagle, our chatbot, in action, and then talk a little bit about the technology and how we came to develop the chatbot over the last year and a bit, and some key lessons that we've learned so far. So here's the way we framed the problem for ourselves that we thought a chatbot could help with. There is a huge gulf between the way people think of the problem that they've got, the situation that they're in, on the one hand, and the information that can help them take some steps to deal with that problem. So people have so many different ways of articulating their problem. One of the most visited pages on our People's Law School website is on problems with a used car. And we have a Q&A service, question and answer service, that we offer for visitors of the site where they can submit a question and one of our staff lawyers will provide an answer that is as close as we can get to the edge of that line between legal information and legal advice without spilling over. And we find that there's just a dizzying array of ways that people will phrase their question. And they struggle mightily with discovering or landing on the information that can help them with that question, even though it's on our site, they're on our site, but they're struggling with, how does this apply to me? And so we thought that a chatbot could, over time, be part of the solution to address that problem. Before I get into a bit more of that, though, I just want to mention a couple of context pieces. So one is the broader context of the landscape we work within at People's Law School, delivering public legal information within this access to justice space that has many dimensions to it. Research shows that folks who experience legal problems in Canada, most of them handle the problem on their own or do nothing. So the two charts here are from different bursts of research. The first on the left, the Department of Justice Canada sponsored research from the mid-2000s. The chart on the right, a very recent burst of research from Legal Aid BC here in British Columbia on everyday legal needs experienced by low-income people in BC. And the results are remarkably consistent, that only about a quarter to a third of people seek help with their problem. And the remainder either try to navigate it on their own or do nothing. And it's that remainder that we're addressing. So just to be clear on that, though we do with some of our information and some of our chatbot help guide people where we think, well, this really, you could benefit from getting professional legal help, guide folks there. But mostly we're trying to help people take steps on their own and empower them to take action when they might not otherwise be inclined to. A little moment on our context, specifically at People's Law School, and part of what led to the development of this chatbot that I'll show you in a moment, is that we took over a service last year called Dial a Law. And that was a long-standing service in British Columbia that for 30 plus years was run by our BC branch of the Canadian Bar Association. And it provides starting point information on the law across a wide range of topic areas. There's now 200 topic areas almost covered. And it started as a phone service, as you might guess from the name, Dial a Law. And 20 years ago, it was put on the web. And the web is vastly the more popular part of the service now. 3% of users of Dial a Law place a phone call to the Dial a Law service. So when we took it over, we did some research sponsored by our primary funder, the Law Foundation of BC, to dig into like, what could we do with this phone dimension, especially of the service over time, that would tap into how people are now using phones. And So among the many research findings was that people are now using their phones more for messaging than for talking. And so that was part of what informed us to take steps down the road of developing a chatbot. So very quickly, when we use the term chatbot, we're talking about some kind of computer program that has a conversation with a person. And what we were learning as we dug into where we could go with the dialogue service over time is that chatbots are quickly emerging. They're kind of everywhere now, from my telephone provider's website to lots in the law space and other realms. And we thought this, maybe not today, maybe not next year, but in time could really be a part of the solution to connect people with helpful information based on how they articulate the problem, what they type in, or over time, what they say to the chatbot. That's not what ours supports right now, but so as I'll show you in a moment, it does support natural language, people typing in their own words. And we're in the process of training our bot to provide more helpful responses when it's not currently able to, in those instances when it doesn't currently return something that's on point. And one of the potential tantalizing pieces with chatbot technology is that it can scale. So it can reach hundreds, thousands of people at one time, whereas people, of course, cannot when they're helping someone one-on-one. So here on the screen is a chatbot from some folks in New Zealand. It's one that I think is doing a really nice job. They've launched in a few different spaces. This one's called WorkBot. They have a couple others for specific legal topic areas. And one thing they've done, as we have done at People's Law School, is launch their bot on different channels. And this is one of the really powerful things about chatbots, is that once you've done the initial development work, you can, without a lot of additional work, launch it on additional channels. So they've got, as we do with our People's Law School bot, their bot on the web as well as on Facebook. And so what we see as a real potential with chatbots is that we can reach people on more channels who wouldn't necessarily find us through the web or the other channels that we're currently active in. And just one more context setting piece is that part of what makes us really want to dig in and work this chatbot initiative through more fully over time is that research suggests that people experiencing legal problems have high optimism for how more or better information could help them achieve a better outcome. This chart here is from the recent research from Legal Aid BC. They did a burst of research 2 years ago in 2018. This chart is from there. They did another burst just this summer. It's showing fairly similar results, just it's a little different because of COVID. So I thought I would show you the 2018 results. And folks actually rated additional or better information the most highly of all the options offered in terms of what could help, they thought would help them achieve a better outcome. And it's fully, the folks who said yes in the darkest blue there, 67% saying additional or better information, that's 50% more than folks who said a lawyer, which is really a striking response from that survey audience of low-income British Columbians. So this brings us to our vision for Beagle. We see Beagle fitting in as a chatbot that responds helpfully to questions from British Columbians on everyday legal problems. So that's our focus at People's Law School BC, problems that come up in the fairly ordinary course of daily life for a significant number of British Columbians. And we see it as a way we can reach more people through additional channels, as I mentioned, and to help people navigate our content on the two main websites that we offer, peopleslawschool.ca and dialaw.ca. One final thing, and then I'll wrap up with a couple of other lessons learned and so on, is that we see our chatbot as a long-term play. We've initially launched with 3 problem areas. fairly comprehensively covered: consumer, money, and work. And these are the three areas that the ongoing research shows to be the most common problem areas for Canadians and British Columbians. We are training Beagle and rolling in other topics as people could put their questions into Beagle. So we're responding to what people are asking. And so we've got content coverage now on COVID, estates, wills and estates, that is, neighbor law, which we get a lot of questions on at People's Law School, and some other topics as we go. I just wanted to give you a 30-second flavor of how Beagle works in action. I brought up our Dialogue site, which is where we initially launched this summer after we launched on Facebook back in the spring. And so here we offer a couple of different ways for folks to navigate around Beagle. They can navigate through what we call cards here by sort of scrolling around, clicking into the most common problems that we've had folks ask us about through Beagle. So here I've clicked on used car problems, and our modules that we've fully developed walk folks through in a conversational experience some key things they should know, and then on from there to steps they can use to take action on the problem that they're dealing with. So here in the case of a used car, a couple of key things they should be aware of before they take action, and then onward from there. And similarly, folks can type in, or alternatively rather, folks can type in their own words. So just to switch gears fully here, I'll switch gears to a totally different problem area that we get a lot of questions about at People's Law School, and that's on the steps to take to deal with an estate. So I've typed in probate forms, and Beagle is offering a response that's on point. I've got information and steps on the steps and paperwork involved, and giving people options about where they want to go. And from there, clicking onto the website. So we've got a few different approaches that we're using currently, and trying to get a flavor of which ones are having the best impact, and also how much work is involved in the different approaches. And then to wrap up my segment, I just wanted to talk for a few moments about some of the technology in play. So with this chatbot, we have used free to us technology. The first one is free to anybody, and that's Raza is the artificial intelligence conversational platform that we are using. It's open source, and so free to anybody to use. And then to manage the content under the hood, we're using a unified content management system called Contentful. This is a commercial product, but they have an amazing approach to nonprofits, and have given us a full free license indefinitely to the entire platform because we're a nonprofit. We're super impressed with this. And one key thing that we've done that makes it very hard for us to respond to the question of how much did this cost you, is that we have taken the approach of powering our Dialogue Law website and the Beagle chatbot from one content source that's managed in Contentful. Okay, so that's part of why I say this is a long-term play. We're delivering up web pages that get thousands of visits a week from the same source that we're delivering up the Beagle content. And so for that reason, getting a much bigger bang for a buck, but it took more development time to get there. But using free tools it means that we're not having to pay a licensing fee on an ongoing basis. We pay hosting fees that are a few $100 a month type of thing, but otherwise the ongoing costs are just our content and training time. So it's not, I wouldn't describe what we've done as a fully made from scratch chatbot. We're using some of the best in class technology that is out there, but we put it together in a way that made sense for our needs. And then the last slide that I wanted to speak to for a moment is some of the lessons we've learned. So this Raza platform, we're really quite impressed with it. It's getting better every month. It's got a vibrant community that is contributing back to the code in this open source spirit. Well, more than spirit, it's reality for it. And so it also means that it's shareable with others, which is really, we totally are big fans of that approach. That all said, it's early days for chatbots generally. So there are some glitches occasionally and detours that we've taken over the months, and needing to be adaptable is one of the key lessons learned for sure. And try a few different approaches, a lot of user testing to get a better insight into what users respond best to. And in a nutshell, we think of the stage that we're in now as experimenting so we can fail forward. You know, we don't quite know where this is going to take us, but we have high confidence that it's got real potential to be impactful on, in the long term, on this central problem of helping connect people with the legal information that can help them move forward with their problem. Information that in all likelihood exists somewhere, but people are having a hard time finding it and applying it to their situation. So final thoughts, can't say enough about how important it is to choose your tech partners wisely. We did an RFP process that we had some technology expert that was outside our organization and a colleague organization at Legal Aid BC participate on our selection committee that really helped round out perspectives to help us select a partner, Tango Work, who has been amazing to work with. It's a Nelson, BC based developer that does a lot of chatbot work and intranet work, as well as other emerging technologies. They built rebuilt our dial law site powered by Contentful and did an amazing job this spring with that. And then two final thoughts. One is, I'm convinced personality and empathy play a big role in making chatbots a positive user experience. You know, the cute dog angle, we've gotten mostly really good feedback. The occasional person is like, you know, I don't want to see a cute dog give me legal information. I don't really trust it. But most people have responded really, really well in user testing and just generally to the idea of it making a difficult subject more approachable. And last thought is, all this said, at the end of the day, the content that Beagle is delivering up is so important. Part of why we went with the unified content management strategy of the content has to be helpful and understandable for people to be able to get any real benefit from it, whether it's coming from a chatbot or any other channel. Thanks for that.
Thank you so much, Drew. That was great. I appreciate it. And I think we'll move right ahead along. So Drew Spicer, if you want to go ahead, feel free.
For sure. All right. Let me just get the presentation up here. And can everyone see my screen? Right on. All right, so today I'm going to be talking a bit about the Spot chatbot. This is a bot that we developed at the Yukon Human Rights Commission in partnership with an organization called Talk to Spot. So I'll go through kind of what it is, why we went this route, some of the barriers that we came up against, some of the really good things we found out along the way. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge that I'm honored to live, work, and play on the traditional territories of all 14 Yukon First Nations. Today, I'm speaking to you from the traditional territory of the Kwanlin Dun First Nation and the Tonquichan Council here in Whitehorse. But the Commission does work across the territories of all 14 First Nations in Yukon. So a few years back, we obtained funding from Justice Canada to do a 5-year project addressing the issue of workplace sexual harassment. So already our organization has a fairly specific mandate. We are a quasi-judicial agency tasked with addressing discrimination in Yukon under the Yukon Human Rights Act. So within that, this issue of workplace sexual harassment was coming up as an issue over and over and over again. And we obtained this funding in order to hopefully have a chance to address this. This bot, hopefully, we hope, and I think it is working out to be a partial solution to the issue of workplace sexual harassment. We were hearing from a lot of people that reporting was an issue. There's a lot of literature to support this, that workplace sexual harassment is a very underreported phenomenon. And when we do look at what is reported, it's still very prevalent in a lot of workplaces kind of across the board. There's certain risk factors that make some workplaces more likely to perhaps experience it than others, but across the board, we're seeing this. In the territory, we have lots of rural and remote workplaces. Most of them have good internet connectivity as a necessity of work, but a lot of mine sites, those sorts of things, and small communities where people don't necessarily have the option to go talk to a lawyer. There may not even be a lawyer in town. They might not have access to a phone. They can't give us a call. And similar to what Drew Jackson was talking about, a lot of people were shifting online. They were going online to get their information. So we started looking at chatbots, and we started looking at the reporting aspect in particular. And we came across an organization called Talk to Spot. Their tool was developed in an HR context to give people in HR a tool in which to better address the issues of harassment in workplaces, and to give people in workplaces a way to report anonymously. Spot came out of Dr. Julia Hall's research. She's a Canadian researcher. She's currently working in the UK. And she's a psychologist, and her research focused around barriers to reporting and witnesses in particular, and why witnesses do or do not report. And a lot of what she found was organizations didn't have robust policies. They didn't have good training. They didn't have any way that witnesses could anonymously report. A lot of witnesses were concerned about what would happen to their careers. They didn't want to interfere in other people's situations. And Spot was a response to this. So we took it from the HR context. We worked with Talk to Spot, and we adapted it to the human rights context, where our audience is all Yukoners, everybody within our jurisdiction. And that was a big shift, and it took a lot of thought going into this as to whether that could work or not. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, because I think it's really important when you're taking the approach that we did, where we went with a licensed tool and you're hoping to customize it, that you really think about the purpose of the tool and whether it's close enough to your purposes that you can customize it. In this case, we felt that we could. So what Spot does now is anyone can go onto our website. They can access it for free. They go on there, they click through, they can get some information generally about what is discrimination, what is harassment under the Yukon Human Rights Act, just more generally, how do we define it? And then they can start to tell their story. So this was envisioned as a way for someone who has just experienced an incident of harassment, which normally there are multiple incidents occurring over a period of time. That's generally how it happens in real life. For people to go in and be able to document their experience. And as they go through the original version of Spot, would ask them lots of questions. We've shifted a little bit away from that, and I'll talk a bit about that in a second. But important to stress, it's free, it's anonymous, and it's secure. So as they're going through, they don't have to give any identifying information. They can if they would like to. They will for sure get a timestamped copy sent to their email. So once they're done creating a report documenting their experience, they get a PDF that's been timestamped, sent to their email so that they can keep that for later and do with it as they please. They then have the option to take out any identifying information if they want and send it to us at the commission. And we treat that like an inquiry, like if somebody was contacting us by phone, contacting us by email, and looking for legal information. And we will then reach out so we can interact directly through the Spot interface. So we don't get their contact information directly. We don't get their name unless they choose to provide that to us. So they can stay completely anonymous and get information about an issue that they're having. Often it's at work. That's what this platform was designed for. But sometimes we get questions of more general nature and people using this to report other things as well. So that's it in a nutshell. It went through a few iterations. So this was 2018 when we obtained the funding or started to work through obtaining the funding, and it was launched in May 2019. This first version relied heavily on natural language processing, so on recognizing what someone was saying. And it was not bad, but we found through user feedback, this monitoring and feedback that occurred through kind of 2019 through to January 2020, that what was happening was a lot of people were just dumping information. They weren't used to a bot being able to ask them lots of follow-up questions. And in the moment, they just wanted to get all the information on the page. Often this was kind of 10 minutes after an incident occurred, and they were just trying to get everything down. And so they were putting in huge unorganized paragraphs of information. The bot was then asking them some questions about it, and more often than not, they were saying, well, I've already said as much as I want to say about that. Skip that question, skip that question, skip that question. And so the reports that were coming out of this that they were then hoping to use later, either in an HR context, in an internal complaint mechanism, if they were coming to us, if they were going to the RCMP, however they decided they wanted to address the situation, were just these long, unorganized blocks of text that were really hard to see the logical sequence of events most of the time, and to really parse through and find what the issues were. And so based on that feedback and based on a lot of research that Spot did, they were finding similar things at other organizations as well. So we took a step back, and I think this is, again, to Drew Jackson's point, that this technology is new and it's a work in progress, and it needs to be applied in a way that really makes sense for the problem that you're trying to address. We took a step back from the AI component and the natural language processing component. So now when people go into Spot and they tell their story, it starts off and it uses much more of a structured interview technique. So it will ask them small, very specific questions based on the cognitive interview. This is an interviewing technique that's been around since the late 70s, early 80s, trying to get as much information as possible from people who've experienced or witnessed an event. And it'll ask them things like, who was involved in this? Let's add a person. And so they can, this was my boss, so-and-so, they witnessed the event, this was their role. Do you want to add anyone else? And so they can add a few different people in. And then it'll ask them specific questions. And so we're asking for information in little bits and pieces. And what that does is it allows them to just give a little bit at a time, get all the details down. And at the end, they end up with a document that's quite well structured and easy for someone reading it to understand. And easy for them to go back and really quickly identify, oh yeah, that's what I was trying to say there, and that's what happened. So they put all that information in, and then they can go back and they can edit a little bit if they want before they create the final document. So we launched that in early September 2020, so it's pretty recent. We also made it available in French, so it is bilingual now. And in the back end, we made a lot of improvements. Before, this was a fairly limited platform being developed for HR. They were really worried, Talk2Spot was really worried that a lot of people don't know how to properly respond when somebody brings allegations of harassment to them. And so they had really narrowed the way in which people on the back end of this program could respond to the things being submitted to them. There were kind of responses that were already written and set out. You could submit additional ones if you wanted for review, and the Spot team would say, yeah, that's a good response, or no, that's not. But it was pretty limited. You couldn't just type an email or type a response and reply. And that made it really challenging for us to give the information that people needed when they were submitting these reports to us. And so we said, if we're going to continue to use this platform, we need to be able to answer in a much more comprehensive manner and to be able to write these answers as they're applicable to the situation in front of us. So Spot responded to that. They said, we hear you, absolutely. And now we've worked with you for a year. We trust that you guys kind of know what you're doing, and you're not going to say something that will re-traumatize someone or make the situation worse. So they've now opened it up so that we can put in whatever responses we want. We still have the templated ones if those fit the situation and it's the information that people need, then that's nice and quick. But we can also write custom responses now. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback about that. One of the other issues that we ran into was at the commission, we've kind of got a dual role. One is the public legal education side of things. The other piece is our complaints process, which is a formal process that results in investigations and can eventually lead to hearings and so forth. And people were looking at the Spot and arriving at it on our website and thinking that by filling out this kind of question and answer and telling their experience, they were launching a formal human rights complaint. So we've really shifted the messaging. We've done a lot of advertising. We've made a lot of tweaks to the language within the program itself to differentiate between the two processes. So that's a caveat, is making sure that as you are talking about this and as someone is going through it, they're really clear about what the purpose is and what the tool is going to give them at the end of this. Nothing worse than somebody arriving at your office saying, hey, I filed a complaint 3 months ago, what's going on? And us having no idea what they're talking about because they submitted an anonymous report that we responded to through the Spot platform. So that's in a nutshell. Why did we adapt an existing platform rather than creating one from scratch? So the first thing was time. We're a pretty small organization. We don't have a lot of staff, and we're already pretty busy with the stuff that we were doing. So it was important to us that we could, if we were going to do this, we could do it in such a way that we could get it up and running quickly. We're also in a 5-year project with this workplace sexual harassment project. So we wanted to get something that we could get rolling quickly and then adapt throughout. My goal is that we use this funding that we have over the 5 years to get this tool to the point where it is really effective and doesn't cost us very much to continue to use post-project. I'd like it to be a long-term thing that we can use this funding to really boost the project forward and get it to the point where we can keep it rolling. Cost was another thing. Because we had the funding, this gave us a bit of a budget to work with. And so with the timeline piece, it was more important to us to have it was okay to have a bit more of an ongoing cost and less upfront development costs because we've got the 5 years to work within here. So I know Drew Jackson was saying that for them, they were able to get some open source software, and that allows them to kind of have low costs in the long term. For us, we had that funding, so we said, let's spend the money now and keep going. It was also evidence-based. We've got a lot of expertise in our office around discrimination, human rights law generally, and some knowledge around harassment and some trauma-informed approaches when someone brings these sorts of things to you. However, we aren't experts in everything, and we're not experts in IT development and these sorts of things. So we said, let's go to an organization that has already done a lot of the work for us. Talk to Spot. The project came out of research that was being done by Dr. Julia Shaw as part of her PhD research, and then developed into a business model afterwards. She'd done a lot of research in terms of barriers to witness reporting and to victim reporting. And she'd done there was a lot of legwork that had been done by the organization in terms of getting the platform to a point where it was really effective and easy for people to use. So we had to kind of look at our resources internally, look at where our expertise was, look at our capacity, and look at what was important for our partners to have, and talk to Spot fit all the boxes in that respect. And with it being a subscription-based software, the upkeep is really low. All the updates are happening on the Talk to Spot end. We don't have to think about that. It's there when we need it. We are in continuous dialogue with them, kind of tweaking things and adapting things to make it suit our needs and bring it over from the HR context and work better and better in this kind of broader human rights context. But the day-to-day upkeep is really low. We don't have to think about that at all. So we're about 1.5 years coming up on 2 years in, and I was asked to answer the question, like, has it been worth it? So far, yes. It's been good. We're much happier with the second iteration, and it is a long-term thing. This developing these kinds of tools, I don't think it can be a let's just kind of do it and expect that it's going to work for a year or so. It does have to be kind of part of a long-term vision and a long-term process. And before that starts, it's really important to be clear what the purpose of the tool is and what the desired outcomes are. For us, those have shifted a little bit since the inception. At the start, the project, the tool was more geared towards the HR side of things, and it wasn't necessarily particularly effective for what we wanted, which was we wanted something where people could document their experiences, keep a record of those experiences so that they had the choice when they decided that they wanted to do something about it. If they decide they want to do something about it, they can choose where to go, and they've got that record to bring with them and say, here you go, this is what I experienced at this time, and so forth. And I think we're getting to the point where our tool is effective at that, but it's taken some time. It's important to scale the project to the budget and to factor in that upkeep. To this point, it has been under $10,000 over the 2 years. It is subscription based, so we will continue to pay into this. It's about a couple $100 a month in terms of subscription for this going forward. I think we've got a pretty robust tool for that, but factor in what your internal capacity is in terms of upkeep, whether you want to develop something yourself or whether you want to go for something like this where it's a subscription-based model. And important to consider the opportunity costs for us, because we had the funding, and we do have the funding through this 5 years, but we have not that much in terms of human resources. It was more important for us to have a tool that was ready to go, ready to use very quickly, and something that our staff doesn't have to put a ton of time into maintaining, developing a whole bunch of new content, that sort of thing. Whereas another organization may have more people who are able to spend some time on this, but not necessarily budget elsewhere to plug into it. So that was important considerations on our end. The other piece, I've talked about this a little bit already, but the natural language processing piece, we were really excited to use this in the first iteration, and I think we will bring it back at some point, but we need to put some more thought into how we apply that. People just did not seem to grasp the concept that this bot would be able to ask questions about the information that they were giving. And in the moment, particularly because of the specific application of this, where it's designed for people to use it just after an event has occurred, people just want to get all the information down there as fast as possible. And that wasn't really working with the natural language processing that we had integrated and that Spot was using. It was asking good questions, but people just wanted to put it all down in one blob and forget about it. So we brought it back to a much more structured interview technique that gets down small pieces of information and structures them in a way that has a kind of an easy to read timeline, easy to see who the actors are, easy to see what happened. and we've had a lot of positive feedback from users on this. We're getting somewhere in the range of 20 or so people a month using it right now. There's a difference between people can submit those anonymous reports. We never see those on our end, but then people are also submitting reports to us for us to answer questions. And now that we've got this new version up, we're marketing it in a much more aggressive manner, and we've reached out to about 90 umbrella organizations around Yukon, letting people know. We've got a lot of organizations pretty excited, and I think as we go into the new year with this new version, we're expecting to see a big increase in people using it. So it's been a great tool for us so far. We're really happy with it. Talk to Spot's been a great partner. They've been really flexible, always willing to hear what we have to say and to adapt the product to our needs as opposed to those original intended needs. And I think they'd like to kind of branch out more into the nonprofit sector and see what this can do. So I think they see us as a bit of a learning experience for them as well. So we're excited to partner with them in that respect. And that's about it on my end. If anybody has any questions, happy to answer them after Amir has a chance to go.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Drew. Really appreciate it. That's great. So we have Amir next, and we do have until about 1:15 or so today. So I know, don't worry about the, the clock. We've allotted for a little bit more time today. So feel free to go right ahead, Amir.
Sure. Can you hear me now? And can you see this? Okay, perfect. So before I begin, I just wanted to acknowledge that here in Montreal, we are on Indigenous lands of the traditional territory of both Kehaka, Mohawk, and the Anishinaabe Algonquins peoples. And I'm very happy to be here. Thanks for the invite. All right, so we're from Montreal, and our core focus is on legal violation detection technology. And what I mean by that is that given a set of policy documents like law or a different kind of documents that describe a set of rules in plain language, what we're trying to do is to see if an input that is basically a description of an incident from a user may potentially violate any of those policy documents. So that's basically the core focus of what we do on a day-to-day basis. And so we are lucky to have great advisors helping us in our mission. We have Dr. Yoshua Bengio as our scientific advisor. Yoshua is he's a famous Canadian AI I would say celebrity. He's among one of the three scientists who pioneered an approach to artificial intelligence, which is called deep learning, which is inspired by the human brain. And he's in Montreal. He's the head of Mila, and he has so many different achievements. It's really hard to list them. We also are working with Carol Piovison. She's one of the leading privacy lawyers in Canada. Privacy is something that we are really keen on, and Carol is currently working with Minister Baines on the new Bill C-11 that I think it was tabled today, the new Canadian privacy law. She's also the co-chair of the National COVID app. And since last year, we partnered with Department of Justice and a lot of organizations from here under this Sexual Harassment in the Workplace initiative to bring a solution for all Canadians. So to give you a little bit of background, both Drews, they discuss a little bit about underreporting and the psychology of users. We also started our journey with the same kind of problems, but we had those problems ourselves. So we are not lawyers. We're a tech company, but both myself, and Ruchika, my co-founder, we both had trouble interacting with the justice system. So we actually got inspired to solve some of those problems from a user angle, and not from somebody who's providing these services. And at the very early stages, we actually defined the main user type that we wanted to target as users who actually their rights are being violated and they're not taking any action. and this could be based on a variety of different reasons, because you may not even know that your rights are being violated, or you may not even know that you have a legal case, or you sometimes know but you're afraid to come forward because of let's say retaliation, or you just, for a lot of people, they just think that this is just cost of doing business. So underreporting is an active area of research in many different fields, and for us, what we actually did very early on was to create basically a psychological state map of a user who is not coming forward, and try to design a product to address that. And what we actually came up with was the first version of the tool that we launched it back in 2017. And the way it works is that basically anonymous users, and anonymous user could be anybody, could be complainants, bystanders, or accused, they can come to this platform, and this basically dialogue interface, or this bot will ask them a series of questions. They can explain some of the aspects of the situation that basically they're dealing with. And at the end of the system provides them with a list of recommendations, including some of the plea basically resources that are currently being developed by partners like yourself, and also other resources that are already available, or it can provide them directly legal advice through the legal advice component, which is being provided by our legal aid partners. And the whole idea here, and the whole idea behind the design, was to basically convert those users who we are calling silent users into an active user. So an active user is for us somebody who actually is taking an action, either educating themselves, or going and talking and seeking legal advice, or just know that they're basically dealing with a legal situation. And this is how we are basically designed the entire platform. And so over the past 3.5 years, we actually validated that this kind of emotionless and judgment-free approach actually works, specifically on the early stages when users are not really ready to take an action. So with a system, with a system that we have, we could actually validate that these people find values. We had users both from the complainant's side and from the accused side using the tool, and we could actually follow them through their entire user journey and see how their cases actually evolved. And that's how we actually proposed the entire solution that it's illustrated here as well. So we actually, at the top layer, this is actually our user conversion funnel. So at the top, we start with a general awareness, and this is awareness about the tool, about the law, about our partners, and about the services that our partners are providing. And this is general to everybody. And the goal here is to basically try to raise awareness about the due process in areas where people can get help from, and to target those users and bring them back to the platform on the second stage, which is the conversion stage of the process. And in this process, we are providing a series of different tools to users, including the triaging bot. And what we want to do is to convert them, activate them, and hand them off to the third stage of the funnel, which is being provided by our legal and support partners. And that's the action layer, and that's basically where we are providing legal advice and legal information directly from the platform. And it's a chatbot, so it's a chatbot talk. So I thought we probably want to touch a little bit on the technical aspects as well. So at the time that we started, unfortunately, Raza wasn't really out there. We started back in 2016, and we had to basically build an entire pipeline and natural language understanding pipeline ourselves. And so Butler is it's like other chatbots. Whenever it receives an input from the user, it actually performs a series of different tasks, mostly powered by machine learning, to be able to predict what is the best next output should be for that let's say, conversation. So should it be asking more questions? Should it just end the conversation? Should it hand it off to, let's say, a human? So what is the prediction here is basically what is, given a user input, what is the best possible output for that user be? And for us, we're relying our entire basically tech pipeline on language models. And language models are basically, I mean, essentially they're algorithms that they can convert words into vectors. And these vectors can be, you know, we can perform different types of calculations on these vectors. And the great things about them is that, like other tools, are open source and they're mostly provided by bigger companies like Google, OpenAI, Microsoft, Amazon. They all are providing very well-trained language models. And we built our pipeline on top of this. And for us, what we're really trying to solve is how can we find a distance between the way that a user is describing a situation into the way that a specific policy is being basically explained, and how language can be basically mapped, how a user, let's say, explained situation can be mapped to those set of policies. And this is basically what we're really focused on. And we're open for partnerships. So we are receiving a lot of, I mean, we are actually onboarding a lot of different partners. Specifically, we are working with Legal Aid at this stage, but we already indexed some of the contents that are out there. So if you are producing any sort of contents that you would like us to include, we would be more than happy to work with you. I have my email here. I would be more than happy to connect and answer any questions after the presentation.
Perfect. Wow, right on time. That's great. Perfect. Thank you so much, Amir. Thank you to everyone who's presented so far. I really appreciate it. So now we have a little bit of time left. If anyone has any questions, feel free to either put it in the chat or go ahead and submit it into the Q&A. If we wrap up early, that's totally fine too. But just to get started, I do have a few here that I just wanted to share. So I think one here was actually, so for Drew Spicer, so what was your vetting process with your tech consultants? Can you expand on that a little bit?
So unfortunately, that's not something I can go into a lot, just because I wasn't here at the time. We had a period of a bit of turnover in the last year and a half, so I've been in this position for just over a year now, and this process started a fair bit before I got here. I know that they looked at a few different options at the time, and Talk to Spot just ticked all the boxes in terms of they were excited to work with us. They were within our budget, and they were able to do a lot of the legwork in terms. They'd already done a lot of the legwork in terms of developing the platform and the research behind it, making sure that it is a really evidence-based approach in terms of the way that we interact with people and collect that information and help them document their experiences. So I wish I could expand a little bit more, but unfortunately that institutional knowledge has been lost along the way.
Okay, no, that's perfect. No, I appreciate that. Okay, so I have another question here. So Amir, how do you encourage silent users to become active users? Oh, we just muted there.
Yeah. So the entire process is basically the activation process. For example, to address some of the problems, so anonymity was the first thing that actually came up. And again, so context, to give you a little bit of context. So when we started, we didn't have any other tool out there as a reference. So we had to actually come up with a lot of these different hypotheses and test them with different users. So the fact that users are not coming forward. What we learned through this entire experience, and actually Drew was also talking a little bit about how they're changing also their approach and asking specific types of questions. I mean, the experience that the user going through and interacting the tool is actually super, super, super important, because that experience will determine whether they're going to drop off at the end or they're going to be hand off to the legal advice component of the system. Because for us, all we were trying to do is to hand those people to the right partners. We're just a conversion tool. And from the way that we are branding the tool, all the way that the questions are being designed, all the way to the way that even sometimes the resources are being provided to the user, they're all part of this bigger picture of how can we take the user to the next step, which is basically the next answer that we can get it from the user, and then direct them to the next step. And we actually are using a AI for optimizing the conversation within the conversation itself. We're using something which is called reinforcement learning, and this technique allows us to learn what is the fastest way to let's say convert a user that is describing a situation which may fall, let's say, under, let's say, sexual assault, with the right questions to make sure that they complete their journey, and at the end they will actually act on getting connected to the partners.
Okay, that's great. Okay, great. And I think I have another question here that's a little bit, it looks like it's kind of directed at Drew Jackson, but I think it applies to everyone here, just in terms of sort of the creative personality aspect. But how did you choose your chatbot mascot? Levitt, just curious on the creative brainstorm end. So that's for Drew, but also kind of opening it up to everyone, because I know, Amir has, you have a little bit of the little kind of screen happy face, and Drew, you guys went a little bit classy as well. So feel free to go ahead, maybe Drew Jackson, if you want to start on that one.
Sure. So we took a few stages to get to the Beagle end result. Initially, we mapped out as a team what concepts we wanted the visuals and the personality to represent. And then we came up with a few ideas, and we crowdsourced reactions to that using Amazon Turk, like one of these crowdsourcing venues where you can get folks to react to something and get paid a micro amount for their participation. And then we did another round of kind of reaching out to the public directly around the name specifically. Had a few shortlists there. So both the visual and the name, we really tried hard to get reaction directly from members of the public, our audience for Beagle.
Does anyone else want to chime in on that, or the process or anything?
Yeah, so the mascot of the bottler that you see is very old. I think the first it was I think we launched it in June 2016, and we have 5 different mascots that we actually A/B tested with Concordia users, and we saw that this is converting better than anybody else, and that's how it became Bottler's mascot.
Awesome. I think that's actually a really great question, because on Drew Jackson, in your presentation, you mentioned the personality. People kind of come to a chatbot, they need sort of a serious answer, maybe something more urgent, and others, might sort of find that they need that sort of softer approach. So I think that's a really great thing that people kind of first see. So that's a great question to ask sort of on that end. Okay, and I think I'll just throw in, I just have one more. It's not really directed at anyone specifically, so feel free to answer, or anyone can just speak up on this. But are you struggling with response times? How long does it take to get back to someone? What was that process look like for you?
So response times in terms of the bot, or in
It looks like in terms of, yeah, it looks like in terms of the bot, if it's, or if some, maybe I'm trying to figure out what the question is, but it maybe has to do with if it's actually more of a personalized, maybe this is actually for Drew Spicer, in terms of if you need to, if there's actually more of a human interaction aspect of the chatbot, maybe, what the response time would look like, or how that process was. I'm trying to figure, I feel like that maybe is more so the question.
For sure. So with ours, yeah, it is directing people, if they submit a report, it's directing them to us. And then our duty officer, whoever's on duty that day, will respond to that individual. And then kind of, we keep them with that person throughout the entire process, so that there's continuity. Once you respond to someone, you stay with them and help them get where they need to go, whether it's with us or with another organization, and get them the information they need. In terms of response times, no, I don't think we're struggling with that. We treat it like any other inquiry, as if someone was phoning us, as if someone was emailing us. This still represents a smaller portion of our inquiries than, say, email, phone, or drop-in in the time of pre-COVID. So in terms of capacity in that respect, no, it's been fine. But to put it into context, we're a jurisdiction of 40,000 people. We're the size of a very small city down south. So we might have it a lot easier in that respect than many other organizations. So it probably depends on your audience.
Okay, perfect. Oh, go ahead, Drew.
If I can just chime in on a different angle of that. I sense this wasn't quite what the questioner was asking about, but there's something underlying that really is part of our motivation to dig deep on chatbots and hope that over the mid to long term it really emerges as being a key channel for us. And that is around response time for our question and answer service, which we do have a person. I mentioned earlier, through the website, our People's Law School website, folks can submit a question to us, and we commit to within 4 days providing a response that's a meaty response, like substantive response to their legal question. And we've had year over year over the last couple of years, that service has doubled in terms of its volume as our traffic has increased and other sort of digital channels have tripled and so on. So we're totally struggling on the response time. We expanded from 2 days to 4 days during the initial stages of COVID, because we were instantly getting triple the volume that we had been pre-COVID. So one of the potentials, or the reality with our chatbot, the way it works right now, is the response time is instant. Now, it's hit and miss because we're still training it, and will be indefinitely. It's not got the same adaptability built like out of the gate as a person has, who's bringing their education and experience mix to things, but it's getting smarter, and that's the long-term play.
Perfect. Okay, that's great. And we have another question here. Do you have issues of client confidentiality or privacy occurred in regards to chatbots? So that one's not targeted. If anyone wants to answer that, feel free. So have issues of client confidentiality or privacy occurred in regards to chatbots?
I can jump in from our perspective. This was something we were really concerned with going in, and wanted to make sure that we were respecting people's privacy. Anonymity was flagged to us right from the start. That was something that we wanted to be able to ensure that people could remain anonymous, and that their information was confidential if they chose to provide it. Talk to Spot has pretty robust privacy and confidentiality guidelines and practices. They are GDPR compliant. All the information is stored in servers in Europe at present, spread out between London, Paris, and Berlin. And very, very little is actually stored. So if they're just typing something up and then sending it to themselves, the only record that remains is essentially an email address and a time log of when it was accessed. Their actual data isn't stored on the servers unless they choose to submit it to us, in which case it remains on the servers until we kind of close the file. So far, it's been really good in that respect. We haven't had any complaints around confidentiality or anonymity, and we're pretty confident in the process to be able to maintain that. But it's a critical piece for it when people are divulging these intensely personal and difficult details about situations.
Absolutely. If I can also jump in. So we also had, I mean, when we started the process at the beginning, we thought that probably people will not be willing to interact with an anonymous bot. This was our intuition going in, but actually it turned out to be exactly the opposite. So how we're dealing basically privacy. So first of all, the users on Bottler, they can completely encrypt their data on Bottler, and we won't have access to it. We still have data of over a couple of years that, I mean, they're on our servers in Canada, but we don't have access to them. And we're also following all the compliance in Canada, and especially the new compliance rules that hopefully will kick in next year. And yeah.
If I can just also chime in on this one, because it's something that we all take super seriously, privacy and confidentiality. One of the drivers for us to go down the path of the technology that we did with the RASA technology and Contentful is that we can house those on Canadian-based servers. And so we do. And that is one of the, there are other ways to as Drew Spicer pointed out, other ways to have a private and secure and confidential environment. But we're pleased that we feel we're on a good track with maintaining that kind of privacy and confidentiality for anybody who does put in personally identifiable information, which they don't have to, by the way. They can interact with the bot totally anonymously.
Perfect. That's great. That's awesome. So, I mean, we're just out of time here. I had like another question here, but I think we're going to wrap up, and what we can do is sort of moving forward. If anyone has any other questions or comments, of course, for any of our panelists today, feel free to send me an email. Everyone has my contact info, and I will be sending around, you know, either our panelists' email, or if you reach out to me, I'm happy to get anyone connected. If anyone has any other questions. But I just want to say thank you so much to our lovely presenters for all their hard work and their great input on this topic today. We hope that the information shared was really helpful. Everyone's presentations were really informative, and I will be sending a follow-up email with, yet again, just to follow up on this webinar with this recording, a link to it. So if anyone missed it, you know, of course, I know a lot of people weren't able to make it today, but at least that way everyone can kind of catch up and reach out afterwards if they'd like. Okay, so thank you everyone. And we have a final webinar of 2020 before the holidays next week that we're just kind of squeezing in, but otherwise we hope you have a safe rest of your week and have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks everyone.
Thanks everyone.
Bye.